Where's Fielder? He's gone to the dogs.
Welcome, my friends, to the Gone to the Dogs podcast. This is your host, Steve Fielder, coming at you today from the beautiful Gulf of America in west central Florida. It is an overcast day today. The Chamber of Commerce is not too happy, but our temperatures are on the rise again. We've gone through some cold snaps, but up around 70 or so today, so just a good day. I'm going to do a rerun this week, and as you noticed, this is an episode that aired way back in May of 2022. But this guy's been on my heart a lot lately. You know, in life we meet people that just kind of make an extra impression on us. And the fellow that is the guest this week on this podcast that I've felt so led, really, I don't know that it's a spiritual thing, but I do feel like I should run the rerun of the episode with former PKC CEO and owner Larry Meeks. As many of you know, Larry has passed on and left a void in many of our lives. I saw a picture the other day that Chris Allen had posted on social media of he and Alan Wilson, who also recently passed, and their very, very famous tree and walker female Mill Creek Molly at the boat at Lula, Mississippi, where Molly had won the truck, and in the photo was Alan and Chris and Chip Kozer, who is the father of Chip Kozer now with Elite Nutrition, but Chip was operating Joy Dog Food at that time. And in that photo was Mike Harper, who was a representative for Joy Dog Food, a guy that many of you will remember, the long, tall guy with the bald head and always had a joke of some kind. And but on the far right in that photo was the gentleman that we're going to hear from today, my former boss, the president of PKC. Larry, we miss you very, very much. Today, as by way of introduction, I want to tell you a little bit, set this up for you just a little bit. You know, I was thinking here before we started recording, most guys, the last person on earth they'd want to have a conversation with and talk to would be their former boss. You know, it's when people get into a boss and employee relationship, sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not so good. But I can tell you for a fact that the fellow that I'm going to bring to Mike here in just a minute was my boss for about, I think, about 7 years altogether. And you're going to really enjoy my visit today with the man, the former CEO of Professional Kennel Club, Larry Meeks. How you doing, Larry?
Doing good for an old fat guy.
Well, I tell you what, man, I top out that scale at the highest that I ever have. And in fact, I don't even like to go near the thing.
When I get on the scale anymore, it says one at a time.
I heard a good joke about that. The guy said his wife told him she wanted something that would go from 0 to 200 in 3 seconds. You know, and she looked on Christmas morning, looked out the window of the driveway, and there was a bathroom scale. Yeah, man. Larry, it's great to catch up with you. It's hard for me to believe that it's been as many years as it has. It was 2004 that I made, some could say, a questionable decision to leave PKC and chase the last 6 or 7 years of my career with AKC, and you told me at that time, or you asked me, you said, are you sure you're going to like that corporate life? And some days I did, but a lot of days I didn't. That's for sure.
I understand all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Larry.
But it was a good move for you, I think, Steve. I really do. I think it worked out well.
Well, in some ways it was for sure, but I will go on record right now before my listeners here that my years at PKC were the most fun and enjoyable years of my entire 33-year career. There's no question about that. No question.
That's great to hear.
Well, listen, Larry, most people know you as the guy that was at the helm of PKC, and this is a Coon Hunters podcast for sure. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your background and all. Now, I know your day job through those years we were at PKC and continuing today is at the helm of your trucking company. Tell us a little bit about Gibco and what you do for a living, Larry.
Well, I have been involved in the trucking business for 54 years. I started driving truck, hauling logs for my uncle and my dad. I've just always been around trucks. Then after doing some other things, I went back into trucking. Seemed to enjoy it the most. Then the two guys that I was working for at the time, they were killed in a plane crash that I was supposed to be on and had to cancel. Oddly enough, because I had a truck broke down. I was on my way to the airport and they got me on the radio. We didn't have cell phones back in those days. This was in 1975, so we didn't have cell phones, but they got me on the radio and said I had a truck broke down in Winslow, Indiana. So I called the airport and told Steve that ran the airport, just tell Ron and John to go ahead. And we were going to a pre-job conference in Mount Vernon, Indiana, and flying down to it. And I was going to run that job. And it was just a pre-job conference. But anyhow, I canceled and they were killed coming back to the airport after the meeting. And I stayed on with the fellow who bought it. Then later I got in 1982, I went to Black Beauty Trucking, which was just recently formed. Then in 84, we bought the Gibson companies out of Terre Haute, and it just expanded from there. But I've done everything with trucks, worked on them. I've probably changed 1,000 tires in my life and broke down twice as many. But just don't know anything else but trucks. I've just always been around them, and now my son Jeremy is my partner, and we just recently closed on another trucking company that we purchased in February of this year.
Well, that's great. Well, Jeremy was my pilot.
Yeah,
I know when I went to work for PKC, Jeremy would fly up here to Michigan and pick me. I say up here, I'm not in Michigan now, but pick me up and take me around to some of the events and all. And the first time that I ever rode in a helicopter was with you.
Right.
And we were out looking at trucks somewhere, I think.
Yeah, I remember that.
I can remember we'd be going somewhere to a hunt, going down the road, and you'd say, well, I got to stop in here, and you'd be crawling back under a trailer somewhere checking it out.
Well, it just gets in your blood, but I don't drive much anymore. Once in a while I will just to be where I can drive if I need to, but they don't let me drive much anymore. I'll be 74 in November, so they've kind of taken the wheel out of my hand. To sign checks anymore.
Yeah, well, that's great. It's a great company, and I wanted to get back into the. Let's just mention this. I know at one time you showed me a list or something that you guys were in the top-ranking commodity haulers in the U.S. Is that still something you're involved in?
We still do a lot of bulk commodity hauling, not near what we used to. Um, with some of the recent administrations and their dislike for what we haul at times, we've had to diversify. So
Mm-hmm.
we have diversified into a lot of areas. We haul everything now from coal to bread for Lewis Bakeries. So
Hmm.
we're into a little bit of everything.
I got you.
We run about 150 trucks yet, I guess. At one time, that number was close to 400 trucks that we ran.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now it's down to about 150, and trying to hire drivers these days is a little tougher. And the government sees to that too.
Well, I'm sure that's the case. Well, let's talk about your background, Larry. I think it's very interesting. And a lot of the times that we were driving up and down the road together or out to dinner together at one of the events, we there were just a lot of stories about you as you growing up. I will interject right here. Some of those adventures we got into were something else, and I hope to touch on a little bit when we get down when we start talking about PKC and all. But where were you born, Larry?
I was born in Paris, Illinois, November of 1948.
Okay, so you're just about 2 years and a month or so younger than I am. So, okay. And so that's just, am I right? Is that north or south of Terre Haute?
Northwest, just about 21 miles.
Okay. Okay. Well, tell me what it was like growing up. You and I went by the house where you, one of the, I don't know if that was a place that you grew up, but it was a place that you had lived at one time there in Terre Haute. What was it like as a kid growing up in Terre Haute?
Well, we were very poor. You saw the old shotgun house we lived in. Um, we moved there when I was 9 years old from Paris to Terre Haute. And shortly thereafter, my little brother, he was a year younger than me, we came home from school one day and my mom was gone. My dad drove a truck, but he was gone for 2 weeks at a time. Um, and my mom was gone. I didn't know where she was. I went down to the local grocery store and a little mom and pop store and asked if they'd seen her, and they hadn't seen her. But we had coal stoves, coal stove in the front room and a coal stove in the kitchen. And I knew how to build and bank a fire, but I didn't know how to cook. Um, so I knew I had to take care of my little brother. Um,
Mm.
I put a can of pork and beans on a gas stove and heated it up, and I didn't know you had to open the can. The can blew up, and the beans burnt my back.
Oh,
And
man. Mm.
I still got some scars from that. But I kept me and him for 2 or 3 days till my dad got home, and then it was just me and my dad and my little brother for about, I'll say, a month. I don't remember how long, but then we ended up in the courthouse one day, and me and my little brother sitting on the back row. And that was the next time I saw my mom, and the last time till I got out of high school. And they were up there arguing around a little bit. Finally, the judge said, "Well, what about these two boys?" My mom said, "I'll take Terry the young one. He can live with me." And nobody said anything. And I thought, well, crap, I'm going to orphans home.
Mm.
The old man said he came with me, he can go home with me. And that's the way it was. So from the time I was 9 till I left home when I was 15, there wasn't anybody home through the week but me. I got a paper route and I started working and been working ever since. Still work every day. I don't know any different than work, but it all worked out. We all got close at the end, and
Oh,
I
that's
was
great.
blessed to where when they got sick, I could help them, and when they died, I could help with that and do that. But I was blessed later, and just I grew up very bitter, but got over it. It took some time, but I got over it.
Well, I think that's a lesson for all of us right there. I think time has a way of healing things sometimes. But that you told me that story before, Larry, and that always moved me very much. I mean, thinking about what does a kid at that age think, when
Well,
prospect.
a lot of people that go through that sex, and people had it much worse than me. I mean, there's folks that have some real horror stories. I was fine. I made it, and you don't have to go on Oprah and blame your parents. And you got to live with it. They did the best they knew how, and it all went away.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a little bit. I know some of your activities, you got into athletics quite a bit. And I remember you told me that you boxed in Golden Gloves and all. What about your sports growing up?
I started going to the boys club in Terre Haute a lot. It was a place to go. Wasn't anybody home but me, so I really didn't have a curfew. And back then the boys club cost $5 a year for membership, but I didn't have $5. So the director of the boys club in Terre Haute, Ted Moore, paid my membership if I would sweep the gym and empty the trash and all that. But I got in more than a few fights, but I got in a fight behind the boys club out in the alley. And he was getting tired of that. Matter of fact, he pulled me off. A guy grabbed my hair and pulled me off and said, "If you're going to fight around here, we're going to put gloves on you." And I got into biddy boxing, and that graduated into Golden Gloves. I boxed Golden Gloves until I was probably 19 or so.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it back then. But I played ball all through high school. I played baseball, basketball, ran track. I even ran cross country one year to get a letter. That wasn't for me. That distance isn't for me. But did a little everything. Just played sports.
You wouldn't like still that coon hunting today where these guys got these dogs. They don't even think about slowing down to they're at least a mile in there,
That would be a whole new world to me. I wouldn't even know how to coon hunt anymore.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
Well, we're in the same boat there. Well, you talked to me already about how you got involved in the trucking industry and all, and that's been quite a success story. I told you one time, I said, Larry, I always enjoy being around successful people, and you stroked my ego a little bit. You said, well, you're successful. I said, no, you're on a whole different level of that. On that scale, but
well, none of that would be possible. None of my success would have been possible without having good people around you. There's no way. PKC was no different than the trucking company. We've got employees that have been with us over 30 years, some longer.
Yeah. Is Chuck still there?
Chuck retired.
Oh, did he? Okay.
And was a great employee.
Our listeners should know we're talking about, excuse me, Larry. Our listeners should know we're talking about Chuck Cliver, a well-known coon hunter from there in southern Indiana, and also a mechanic, right?
Sure was.
Yeah.
He was a good mechanic and very, very likable guy. He was a good friend.
Sure.
But we've had several good employees like that, and PKC was no different. You were one of them. I mean, we had some good.
We did.
You couldn't do it. You just couldn't do it. I think that was the issue originally, but that worked out well. We had some great employees.
Well, we're going to talk about PKC quite a bit, I hope. And
okay.
But let me lay a little foundation here on your Larry Meeks, the coon hunter. What's your earliest memory of going coon hunting?
Well, my dad had hounds that early on, my job was just to feed them. Real early on, 4 or 5 years old, I was feeding dogs and taking care of dogs while he was gone, obviously. And my uncle had hounds. They both had black and tans. I started with black and tan. I didn't hunt walker dogs for many years. I still kind of partial to the black dogs, but started with black and tans, and my uncle and I went to Illinois Governor's Cup. Do you remember those Governor Cup?
Oh, hunts? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And whenever we got there, I'd been hunting this old dog, probably old Smoke, probably more than he had been. And whenever he entered, he said the boys going to handle him, and I was a nervous wreck. I had never done that. He said, "You know the rules. Just call him for what he does." We end up placing in that governor hunt. So that was one of my fondest memories early on. I was so proud of that. But when you went back to school and told kids you won the governor's cup, they didn't have a clue what you were talking about.
Right.
No idea.
Well, that was my thing too. Ella and I went to. We didn't go to school together. We went to church together when we were just teenagers. But I said, did I ever talk to you about my hunting back then? And she said, no, I had no idea you had dogs or did this coon hunting thing. And I don't know. I guess, Larry, I don't know whether it was, I thought there was a stigma to it. And maybe I didn't want my friends to know, or that I just, didn't think that they'd understand. So,
Well, and when you told somebody you were a coon hunter back then, it was like you were a second class citizen or something. Why are you doing that? But shoot, coon hides back then were $1.75, $2. That was serious money to me.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I trapped, and shoot, probably like you, Steve, we grew up on rabbit, squirrel, and quail. Without hunting, I think we'd have starved to death.
Well, I was now my dad had that lifestyle for sure growing up in Tennessee on the farm. I was a city boy who grew up in the edge of a little old town there in West Virginia, and I could walk across the highway and be in the woods. So, I kind of had the best of both worlds there, but I didn't get that. But I sure got the stories from my dad, his growing up during the Depression there in Tennessee and hunting with cur dogs and all. Well, do you remember, you say you hunted with your dad. Was there other hunters there that you remember from the earliest days?
When I entered my sophomore year of high school, we moved to Clay County, east of Brazil, Indiana. And a good friend of mine in my class, Jimmy Thompson, his brother, Alfred Thompson, that you probably remember, AJ.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, he just died last year.
Oh.
And he was very instrumental. And he hunted black dogs. He had a black dog that I thought a lot of, and I hunted with them a lot. But Jimmy and I hunted every night. Every night we could, we hunted. We had a blast doing it. And that's where I got to guiding the hunts. Alfred made us guide. That's what it was, either guide or get knots put on your head. So we guided hunts. But those guys were good dear friends and still are, the ones that are living.
Well, that's great. I heard another podcast the other day with Jeff Wood from up there around Paris.
Yes, Crispin, Illinois. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Crispin. Yeah.
He's sheriff up there.
Yeah, he sure is, and a great guy. And he was talking about his black dogs and all. I enjoyed hunting up that way. We had when I was with you, Casey, even probably when I was with PKC, I would go to plot days, and they had it a few times at Marshall, Illinois.
Sure.
And then, and of course, Brazil, went to hunts at Brazil. And then, of course, later on with PKC down at Sullivan, that's not all that far. So, yeah, that's some good hunting along that Wabash River in there, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. And at one time, I bought 300 acres off of J.C. Ellis in Sullivan County that I just bought to hunt on. And
I hunted with you there a time or two.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You sure did. Yeah. Matter of fact, we took some super stakes cast to that property. There was a lot of coon on that property, right on the river. The river was my west property line.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a good plot to hunt. It really was.
Well, what about, you mentioned the black and tans? Was a black dog that you won that that Governor's Cup or placed in that Governor's Cup with?
It was an old black and tan called Smoke. And that was, oh shoot, I don't remember how old I was. Maybe 11 or 12. I don't remember how. I
That's
remember
pretty young.
Yeah. But I was, like I said, I was a nervous wreck.
Well, back in those days, we didn't have youth hunts and stuff. They threw us out there with the lions.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. I figure these guys know their dog better than I do, but some of them didn't have a clue what that dog was doing.
Yeah.
You've run into those folks too.
They're still out there.
I know. Some of them afraid of the dark in the wrong sport.
That's right. That's for sure. Well, okay. I know that when I met you, and the little tiny backstory, here I am down at the Kentucky Houndsman Association meeting. I'm with the UKC. They've asked the editors of the various magazines to come down and speak. And I was with Coonhound Bloodlines at that time. And Terry Walker, with American Cooner, asked me, could he speak to me, would I like to meet him down at the lounge? He had something to talk to me about, and that's when he mentioned the prospect. He had talked to you about me going to PKC, so that's how you and I got together.
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember Rita and I drove up to meet you in Kalamazoo.
That's right. We spent about 3 hours, I think, in that restaurant.
It was a long lunch. I thought they were going to come to Spring.
Yeah. Well, that was a tough decision for me, simply because I had been with UKC so long, but I didn't really know anything about hunting for money. I didn't know how to build a chart of awards or anything else. And you say, well, you want to start doing bench shows and all. And so it was a pretty quick learning curve, but we jumped right in. My first hunt with you was the national championship at Florida.
That's right.
And that's when I came there and stayed at your house, and I met Roger Dale. And Roger had won it, I think, the year before, or he'd just won something with a black and tan named Sally that had gotten him on the cover of Pro Hound, I think. But man, yeah, there's so many fond memories there. But this is not about me. This is about you.
I remember me and Roy coming up hunting with you a time or two. I remember Roy lost three pair of gloves that night.
Oh, yeah, we did. And I really appreciate the fact that you guys coming up and hunting with me. And I did have some pretty good hunting up there in Michigan, didn't I?
I've still got the coon that you had tanned for me hanging in my office. One of the biggest coons I ever killed. You and I hunting together. Roy wasn't with us.
That's right. That was the second time, I think, that you came up, or maybe the first time. That was the time, I believe, when we got the bad news about Mike Harper.
That's exactly right.
You were at my house at that time. Yeah.
That broke my heart. What a friend he was to me.
Awesome guy. And listeners that don't know who Mike was, he worked for Joy. He was a beagle guy there in West Tennessee. I tell you, one of the best pork chops I ever ate in my life, we ate there at Mike's house one night. He did.
No doubt.
He was a super, super guy. He and I kind of went to the same barber. He had that slick haircut there. But yeah.
Growing through your hair.
Right. But no, you and Roy coming up, and we did. I had a pretty good little plot female at that time. I called her.
You did?
Yeah, Annie, but she got so independent I couldn't stand her. She didn't want anything to do with another dog, and even got to the point that she'd leave a tree if a dog covered her, so I couldn't live with that. But yeah, those were good times for sure. And you were hunting a good walker dog on that Joe dog, I believe you called him, wasn't it?
Yeah, old Joe. I got him off of Chuck Cliver.
Okay.
And the first time, I think I might have brought Hustler up. I'm not sure. I don't remember. Hustler or Harry, the old all-can Harry dog. One or the other. But I've been blessed with some good hounds in my life. I really have.
Well, I remember Walker days at DuQuoin, Illinois. and we were there, of course, the whole crew working that event. What a big, bustling event it was in those days.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
still is, but I don't know if they get the crowds like we did there. But they're at the fairgrounds and had some downtime, and you had your dogs with you. Now, I believe that was Hustler and Harry, but
Could have been.
I took your two dogs out and found a place to cut them loose, and they got through there and got through the country and got treated and all. But tell us a little bit about that. You kind of had a special thing for the Pac-Man bred dogs, didn't you?
I did. A lot of people, well, and the bloodline to me was just a good, solid bloodline. They were good tree dogs. One of the dogs I bought had been abused. But once he realized he wasn't going to get beat every time he did something wrong, he was a much better hound. But I like a dog that handles, and they handled good. They were just good dogs.
They were, for sure.
I'm still partial to them.
Mm-hmm. I got you. I figured you were.
One of the best dogs I ever had was out of old Finley River Chief, a dog named Sid. And I don't know, I don't follow the bloodlines like I used to, obviously, but the old Finley River bred dogs were pretty good dogs too. I Sid.
There's still a following for those dogs for sure. And people like to go back and refer to old Chief. And I've done some writing for American Cooner about the Walker dogs and about Shetler Sonny Boy. I got to meet John Shetler. That was a real thrill for me at Walker Days and all. But yeah, for sure. And that bloodline is still there. You know, we had John Monroe on a podcast here a few months back, and of course he was known far and wide for the Finley River dogs. And after he bought Old Chief and anyway, yep, those were some good lines of dogs. Well, what if you had to name one? What would have been your favorite dog down through the years?
Old Sid, that was out of Finley River Chief. He was a direct son out of Chief. Mm-hmm. And I bought him off of Harold Hollingsworth.
Yeah.
You remember Harold, I'm
I
sure.
do. Mm-hmm.
His brother had the dog, and I bought him off of him. He was a 1-year-old. And I broke the dog off of everything but running rabbits. I just got him to where he wouldn't open on rabbits. But if you didn't hear him for a while, he was out circling someplace. And you get a light on him, and he was like one of them cartoons. You just kind of lock it up and try to back out of there, knowing I shouldn't be here. But then he would go tree a coon. But he was my buddy. He was the best for sure.
Well, I think because of your work, you and I were a whole lot alike in the way that we kept our dogs. We didn't keep a lot of dogs. With the way I was working and all, I couldn't leave a bunch of dogs at home for someone else to care for and all. I know when I was there, you always had, seemed like a couple of dogs, and that's about what I kept. But they were nice dogs, and like you say, they handled well and all. And I know that you spent a lot of time with them, and I think that makes a big difference in a dog. Do you?
I think when you've got too big a kennel, you can't focus on what a dog really needs. And the fewer dogs you got, you can give a dog a break where you don't have to hunt them night in and night out, and maybe have a couple, 3 around. But if you get much more than that, to me, unless you've got handlers working them for you or people hunting for you, I think it's hard to give a dog the attention he needs and wants. A dog wants to be hunted. I mean, when you drop that tailgate, they want to all go. It's just, do you want to burn them out? And I never was big on burning out a dog or beating on dogs. I don't like that. I like dogs better than I do most people. So I do more people.
Well, being in business for as many years as you have, that's totally understandable. Yeah. For the most part, though, these coon hunters have been pretty good people. And that's been my my clientele, so to speak, over all the years that I worked. A lot of Thursday mornings, I didn't want to climb in that motorhome or climb in the truck or get on a plane and go to a hunt. I'd rather stay home with my family and so forth. But I always felt when I got to the hunt and got there with the crowd and all, and I can't say enough about that feeling of camaraderie that we had at PKC, and that's what I want to jump into for our next topics here, Larry. But man, we had a great group of people. It seemed like everybody knew what their job was. They just jumped in and did it. From taking entries or whatever it happened to be. We worked hard. Those 10 days at the tennis center, I want to talk about that in just a minute, but I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But we talked about your early involvement, I guess, with PKC was on sitting panels and doing things like that at the clubs. Is that right?
That's right. Jarvis asked me one year. Well, it was before I was on the executive committee, so I'm getting ahead of myself. But he asked me one year if he could pick a couple guys to sit with me on panels at the World Hunt for the 10 days. And at that time, I wanted to hunt too. So I got one of my friends, Mike Smith, to hunt a dog for me, and I agreed to sit on the panels and met some great people doing that. And Steve, the biggest blessing that I had when I bought PKC and during that 12 or 13 year tenure was all of the friends I made with PKC. Now, don't get me wrong, I made some enemies. I was never much on putting up with some of the stuff, but I still stay in touch with a lot of these guys.
That's great.
We're friends on Facebook, and I'm not on Facebook a lot, but I met some great folks at PKC that I would not have met without it. So I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. That's exactly what I'm sitting here thinking. And we lose them. And it hurts. I noticed. Not long ago we lost Jim Smith.
Oh yeah.
And Jim was a guy that I don't know why, but he and old Jack Cannon, they just kind of took a liking to me. And, when I went into PKC, I was a UKC guy. And a lot of those guys kind of gave me that sideways look, what
I remember.
Yeah, you ain't one of us, boy. What are you doing here?
But you were soon accepted, Steve. I mean, that went away. That diminished.
Well, I sure hope so. And I did meet some fantastic people. And I think about him. I think he's fishing a lot now, or what I see that his wife posts on Facebook. But Vern Newland, we used to go out to dinner with him and Candy.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Anytime we go up to the spring classic up around Bucyrus up there and whatever. Those are just examples, and I'm going to get in trouble for not mentioning everybody, I'm sure, but you're exactly right. The great, great people. And what amazed me too was the fact that most of these people were coon hunters. They knew what a coon dog was. It was an organization of coon hunters.
Sure. And a lot of people early on didn't like some of the changes we made, but eventually, and a lot of those people came back to me and thanked me for making the changes. But we had to make some changes that were a pretty bitter pill for some people to swallow. But we just needed to do some things different, and we did. And believe me, I'm not being critical of Jarvis or anything they did in the past. Jarvis was doing that without a lot of help. And Rita and I were fortunate enough. Rita put some great programs in place at PKC that are still in use today. That Angie, my daughter-in-law, she's still the office manager for Roger, and they still have some of those in place. And Angie's improved on some of them, even, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I know that.
That's
It
Angie's
still
one of
works.
those special people, as was Rita. Rita. Having been in your home, Larry, the little things mean a lot. And when I would come down, and you and Rita graciously allow me to stay there with you. You had that nice little apartment downstairs, and get Rita always went the extra mile. Those little touches, not over the board, but hey, want some ice cream, Steve? You need a glass of water before you go down. Take down with you before bedtime. I mean, the little things are what matter the most in life to me. And I always felt very welcome there. And not a lot of people can say they can go into their boss's home and feel at home, but I sure did.
Well, and you've said that 2 or 3 times, but I was never your boss. We worked together. That's the way I like to treat employees, but we work together. I don't ever remember getting on you about anything. So.
No.
I'm not big on that.
We got along great, and it was, as I said, it was one of the best times of my career for sure. Absolutely.
But back to the panels, the first time that we sat on that, it was myself and Woody McCorkle from Georgia and Jimmy Ferguson from Texas.
There's 2 old timers.
Yeah, well, 3 of us.
Well, Woody started.
I was the youngster of the bunch, but I wasn't very young.
Yeah.
But we ran into some interesting situations. I'll never forget one panel that, and I won't name names here. I'll just keep it out of the way. But I believed this man. Now, I believed his story, even though it all didn't just exactly fit. I believed his story. And the other 2 said, "Are we sure? Are we sure?" Yeah, well, I think so. But we did the best we could with it. And I think it ended up for everybody. But right after the panel hearing, this individual gets up and goes over and gets in a poker game. And he doesn't know I'm standing behind him. And he says, "Well, they bought that one." And I told him, "We'll never do it again." It was a very, very embarrassed hunter for sure. And he followed me around trying to, it's okay. I'm not mad at you. I'm just not going to believe you anymore. But I did that for 2 or 3 years for Jarvis. And then Jarvis asked me to sit on his executive committee, which at that time was made up of J.C. Ellis, Dale Bolding, and Nick DiGiacomo.
There's a guy that I thought the world of right there, Nick.
Oh, Nick was I went to Oklahoma hunting with Nick several times.
Yeah.
And Nick has stayed in my home also.
He was a great help to me when I came to PKC. He would call me and just talk and tell me, "Steve, this is the way, this works and that works," and all that. He was like a mentor to me and I didn't ask him for that. He just, open free will. Of course, I know you remember the time we went out to the Little Dixie Jamboree and
sure.
With Nick and Eloise and what a great time we all had. Well, Jeremy froze me to death. I stayed with Jeremy. You told me you could hang meat in his room. Well, it's right, man. That temperature had to be about minus 30.
Jeremy still tells that story, Steve.
He does.
Yeah.
Oh man, Jeremy!
I remember we had to get you a room the next night. I do remember.
Oh man!
I told Jeremy I need him at this hunt. I don't want him to have pneumonia.
I've never seen a guy get a room that cold to sleep in, but man, he seemed to be just fine with it. He's a great guy.
I told him in Snow Camp, North Carolina, one time, got to sleep in the truck. I woke up 3 a.m. I could see my breath. Whoa.
Oh yeah, man, the thing. So many stories. Do you remember us our stakeout that we had that night out in my van?
I do. I sure do.
I felt like I said, man, I signed on to be a field rep here or whatever. I said, here I am out here on a stakeout. I don't know how crazy this is going to get.
Well, I did that a lot. When you get reports from people that would tell you, I think these guys are out pulling dogs off trees, whatever. I spent a lot of nights in the woods by myself sometimes. And Steve Yant can tell you a story about that. I scared Steve one night. He didn't know I was around when his dog treed. When he came in, the hunt was over and he got his dog, and I came out and scared Steve to death. I didn't even have a light. He didn't know I was around.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, those were the good days for sure.
Yep.
Well, at what point can we kind of move into from those days of sitting the panels and working with Jarvis and all to when you made the decision that you wanted to buy the registry and all? How'd that come about?
Jarvis and I were going to Bucyrus to the big hunt up in Bucyrus, Ohio, Spring Classic.
Right.
And he picked me up and I rode with him, and we talked about it on the way up. Jarvis at that time had started the light and the box company, and he was having some issues, financial issues, and asked me if I'd be interested. And I told him I wanted to think about it. I had a lot going on with trucking, but ultimately made the decision to do it. And that was in the spring. And by the World Hunt of that year in October, we had finalized a deal. And we announced it at the World Hunt in 97.
Right.
And I took over in January of 98.
And I joined
Rita and I had it for 13 years, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I remember I came aboard in June of 98. So it wasn't that long after you guys had taken over. I didn't know who Larry Meeks was, quite honestly. I didn't know you. I saw the news, people talking about this new guy at PKC. And then I think, with that meeting you mentioned in the restaurant there in Michigan. But so 13 years altogether.
13 years.
When I've talked to people about PKC and all, and I'll include myself in this, but I was kind of a newbie, and learning my way at that time. Of course, Roy was there, and Roger was there, and Mike Craney was there, and I don't remember who else, but you increased the membership of PKC by 50% the first year. You went from 8,000 members to 12,000 members that first year.
Well, you mentioned Terry Walker a bit ago.
Yeah.
And one of the first things we did after purchasing it was I got with Terry. Rita and I met with him, and we knew we wanted a better publication than what had been there.
Right.
And it was a home run, in my opinion. Terry did a wonderful job with ProHound, still does. But that helped a bunch. The other thing was that, well, even you had some following at UKC. When you came on board, some other people came. There were folks changed over. I started traveling to all the hunts. Early on, I was wearing 2 pickup trucks a year. And Jeremy and I had a small airplane, and we bought a 210, and I was at a hunt somewhere every weekend. I thought it was very important to meet the people, see what was going on, listen to their problems, and try to fix their problems. You couldn't obviously fix all of them, but we did what we could to try to clean up some fears people may have had, where there might have been some favoritism, there might have been some cheating here, whatever that you would try to fix. And I think that went a long way toward it. I think traveling and being there with those guys and meeting them went a long way. Shoot, I went to New York State. I went to I went everywhere.
That's where you met Jeremy Thomas up there, right?
That's exactly right. I stayed at Jeremy. Well, I didn't stay at his home, but I hunted out of his club.
Yeah. Is Jeremy still around? Do you have any contact with Jeremy? I don't. I haven't talked to him in a long time. I don't know. Maybe my listeners do, but great guy there.
I'm ashamed to say I don't know. Mm-hmm. But Jeremy did stay at my home. Him and I forget his hunting buddy's name, but they both stayed at my home. They came to my place in Indiana after I went up there.
I see. Yeah.
And we hunted together. But yeah, I even hunted one of Jeremy's dogs one night. They didn't have enough to make a cast, and I told Jeremy, if you've got a dog around here that you ain't hunting, and we can hang a hot dog and I can hear him bark a time or two, I'll take him out and hunt him. And we did. We had fun. But you meet a lot of people that way, and I think that meeting those people one-on-one and letting them know what your desire was to make PKC a good place to hunt and get a fair shot, I think it went a long way.
No doubt.
Could be wrong. Could be wrong, but I think so.
No, you're absolutely right. It has an amazing impact. And, you know, that's kind of funny. It gives me a little bit of deja vu. That's how I met Fred Miller and went to work for UKC. He was had just bought the registry that year and was traveling around all the breed days to meet the people, you know, and that was my first introduction to him. Well, you know, I've told people over the years, Larry, one of the greatest experiences of my coon hunting life was centered around the tennis center at Ken Lake State Park in Aurora, Kentucky. 10 days. It was something that you dreaded like a toothache, but you wouldn't have missed it for the world. It is the way I looked at it.
That's exactly tiresome days because you're up all night trying to sleep in the morning.
Yeah.
But I would stay, if you remember, I stayed at the tennis center most of the night.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that was important too, to be there when people come in. You know, one thing in our sport, and people deserve the recognition when they win. And it's kind of like going to a basketball game, being the only one in the gym. You don't want that for anybody. So I think that was very important too.
Yeah. Well, you're responsible for me losing a lot of sleep.
I lost it with you.
But yeah, that's true. Because not only, you know, I was, you know, back in the UKC days, man, we had a master of hounds. And when the entries were all called out, the cats were called, we headed for the restaurant and forgot about the hunt till the next morning. Not that way with PKC. I learned right away, man, these guys stay up all night, every night. And then when I was back home, even if I wasn't at an event, that phone was ringing at 3 o'clock in the morning. Somebody, hey, we got 3 guys out here huddled around the cell phone. We got a question, you know. But it was a totally different experience for me, but it was something I really loved. You used to crack me up at the tennis center. When we were there, we had all those food vendors out there along the street.
Yeah.
And you used to say, I got to go out here and solve one of these weenie wars. You remember?
I remember vendors fighting over spots, and, you know, you did it kind of first come, first serve, and if they had it the previous year, you kind of held it for them unless they told you they didn't want it, but that didn't seem to be good enough for some of them. It got pretty competitive, but if you think about how many people were in that county, you know, there's 4,000 people a day in that county, and you couldn't get a room anywhere. Right. So those vendors were a big deal for them. That 10 days was very important to them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there were some arguments over it.
Well, I've told so many stories on my podcast about things that happened at the tennis center, you know, and things, and that's where I learned how to do panels. You know, we didn't do panels in UKC back in those days, And sitting and watching those panels was extremely interesting to me and to a lot of people. We were I came out of this old custom of, well, you state your question to the master hounds, and he goes back and confers in private or whatever and gives you, you don't get to look at the scorecards. That was another thing. And so all of this was a whole new way of doing things for me, but it all made sense, and
that was a Jarvis creation, the panels, and I think it was a good one. Jarvis had so many good ideas.
He did, no doubt, he really did, and we laughed, about something. He says, "Man, Barry Kitty should have been a lawyer." Listen to him, the way he presented his question to those panels and all of that. And the crowd would just gather around. That was one of the biggest attractions of the hunt.
There were some panel artists for sure.
For sure. And I remember all the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's talk about it. I remember one night you had to go get a guy out of a motel room that apparently had got upset and slashed somebody's tires at the hunt. Do you remember that?
I do. The fellow who ended up being sheriff in that county was a deputy then. And he and I and Mike Harper went up to the room and knocked on the door. And when he told the deputy, asked him if he'd come outside when he saw me, he said, "Oh, I did it. There's no point in it." But we worked with him. We helped him through. They didn't arrest him. But the funny part of that night is Mike Harper was in the back seat of the sheriff's car, and I didn't realize he couldn't open the door. And he's sitting in the back seat, pounding on the window, wanting out. I had forgot him in the car.
Well, you mentioned our friend Jarvis, and of course, no, you can't talk about PKC without mentioning Jarvis. What an innovator he was. Really changed the whole sport of coon hunting. There's no question about it.
No doubt about it.
Tell my listeners the story about the night somebody stole Jarvis's pickup. You remember that story?
I do. And at his service, I was telling some folks about that.
Okay. I didn't get to make that.
Right after we closed on PKC, Jarvis went out and bought a real nice Ford pickup, a diesel. A real Sunday truck. This is a nice truck. Everything on it, all the bells and whistles. And the Lone Star hunt in January in Texas is getting ready to happen. Jarvis takes his new pickup and picks up his hunting buddy down below Memphis, and they hunt those bottoms there on West Memphis side. And Jarvis is going to meet Dale Bolding at a truck stop or someplace. I don't remember where, and they're going to travel to Texas together. But he tells James Kirkland, his buddy, "I better get going. I got to meet Dale." So he goes to this first truck stop, pulls in, and thought they had diesel fuel, but they didn't. The next one did. And it's in kind of a bad end of town where he pulled in. He goes, fuels up his truck, goes inside, goes to the bathroom, gets his wet clothes off, come outside, thought, "Well, I better go to the bathroom one more time." When he comes out, pays the gal, goes outside, his truck's gone. He comes back in and he asked the girl, said, "Did you see anybody take off in my new truck?" And she said, "No, sir, I didn't." And he said, "Well, you better call the police. They've stolen my truck and got his dog in it, his clothes, everything's gone." So she calls the police, and Jarvis talks to him, gives him a description of the truck, and best he can remember the license plate. He's standing around there kicking boxes, waiting on the cops to come. And the girl said, "Sir, didn't you fuel on pump 3?" And he said, "I don't know the pump number." Said, "Well, ain't that your truck right out there?" And he'd went out the wrong side of the building. And he couldn't wait to tell me that when we got to Texas. And I wouldn't have told a soul, but he told me, "I started to get in and just take off." I said, "Well, Jarvis, you wouldn't have got 5 miles down the road that I pulled you over. Stole it." But yeah, they totally.
Oh, yeah. That was a great, great story. I've never forgotten that one for sure. And I probably told it or repeated it on Jarvis.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, Larry.
He and I laughed about it a lot.
Right. My friend Nubbin Moore, who was a field rep for UKC, we met then. And since I've retired, and he has too, he lived around Memphis for a long time. And you mentioned James Kirkland and Jarvis. And Nubbin's a black and tan guy. And they always had that reunion over there at Sweat's Camp over on the White River. And of course, J.C. Ellis, had property over that way too.
Right.
But, just mentioning those, I kind of got sidetracked here. I was going to tell you one story, and I've gotten off on 2 or 3 more. I'm really bad about chasing rabbits, but
Me too.
Anyway, those stories, of those hunts back in the day and with those guys. I know exactly where I was going. Nubbin and I go to the White River every year and hunt for about 7 or 8 days, right after Thanksgiving. And we were out there this year, and this last November, and the phone rang in the truck. I was driving. We were going down to DeWitt to get, groceries or whatever. And it was Jarvis. And he was calling to tell Nubbin that he had seen where Nubbin had called him. And I think Nubbin had called him maybe to wish him happy birthday or something. Or maybe he'd been in the hospital or whatever. So I got to talk to Jarvis. He put him on speakerphone. We talked for a good while. And it couldn't have been more than a week after that or so that I heard the news, that he had passed. And we had talked about doing a podcast just like you and I are doing today. And, man, I was grateful for the opportunity to know him, and at the tennis center when we Joe Brooks started having the church services there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something else, the Coon Hunters for Christ was something that you supported very much and always appreciated that. But I'd sit with Jarvis in the church service, and he always called me Brother Steve. I don't know, did he call you Brother Larry?
Always did. Yeah, did. And I enjoyed those church services too. Joe was a dandy. I went out Texas hunting with Joe a time or two.
Oh, yeah. Well, Joe, I made the mistake of rooming with Joe one time at one of the hunts. It was quite an experience, but Joe was a great guy and had a lot of good stories too,
And loved to tell them all night long.
Yeah.
All night long.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. Well, we couldn't talk very much about PKC without mentioning Roy Tramble.
Yeah.
And I know that, when Roy was, I don't have to tell listeners this, but Roy was very instrumental, I think, in the building of PKC and the success of PKC. And, he was the guy that worked with the hunters. And he could get a guy to judge when judging was the last thing on that guy's mind. I remember him sneaking up behind me and putting that hand on your shoulder and start massaging your shoulder and saying, Steve, get your boots on. I need you tonight, and all. But what are your memories of Mr. Roy? I know you made him PKC president, which I know meant an awful lot to him.
Well, early on, I met with Roy and Roger Dale before I closed the deal with Jarvis. I knew that I wanted both of them involved or I didn't want any part of it. I knew I could not, at that time, I couldn't dedicate all the time to PKC that it needed. Even though I tried to put in as much time as I could, I needed both of those. They both played a key role. Without those two guys, I'm not sure I would have ever taken PKC.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would have done the deal. And I knew I had to add that. They both needed some help, which we tried to get. And yourself and Billy Vincent and James McCormick and some other folks.
Right.
We needed them. you needed people in the field to try to work with the hunters to make sure they're getting as good a shot as they can get. But Roy was a good problem solver. Um, he would call me at 3 a.m. I just got off the phone with so and so, and this or whatever happened. What do you think? And we'd work through it, and a lot of times get Roger involved also. Roger got a pretty sharp mind with the rules, and
Oh yeah.
there's times early on that the three of us would work through them and try to come up with as fair a solution as you could. I would never tell you that even though the clubs had panels, that the panel came back with the correct decision. And
Right.
there's times you just had to get with each of those cast members individually and try to work with them. Like I told you, or maybe I didn't tell you, I was fortunate enough that Rita and I never did have to draw a salary out of PKC. It was never about money with me with PKC. I believed in it. I still do. Um, and it was another venue for people to hunt that wasn't there at the time. It just needed to be there.
Yep.
And I could see it melting down a little bit, so that's why we made some changes. But both of those guys, and Roy was the primary contact for a lot of these hunters because he knew people I didn't know until I
Right.
met him. He'd been around forever. But Roy, bless his heart, he was just the guy. I mean, he was the guy to do it. He loved doing it. It was his whole life.
Exactly.
I
Yep.
I don't know that without PKC, Roy would have lived as long as he did. I really don't. But I miss Roy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I don't miss the 3 o'clock in the morning phone calls. But I miss Roy.
No, not at all. I got one night and we're not going to go into that, but I got one night about midnight from Roy that blew my mind, and it was after I'd gone to AKC, but Roy was, he was just that way, I had started working with Roy back in the UKC days when, was running that program. He would always hold an RQE there at Burna, Kentucky, at his club. So I'd correspond with him, and I remember when Roy and Eula Bell lost their son in the car wreck, and all of that. And Roy was just a real good guy that I really liked. Didn't always agree with Roy, but I really respected the way he could work with the men, with the hunters. And I've heard him many times, the guys in question to be resolved, and somebody wouldn't be happy about it. And Roy just looked at him and said, "Boys, you just need to go coon hunting," and he just kind of walked them to the door. And that was Roy, he was good at that.
He was. And I think Roy is probably respected with anyone that's ever been involved with PKC as much as any. I think the respect for Roy's still there. It always was, always will be.
Yep. And
I won't say he did it right every time, but I think he did his best.
Oh, absolutely. I would agree with you there. He did what he thought was best for the organization.
I agree.
And he had this thing about he wanted, if a dog treated a coon, he wanted that dog to get credit for treating that coon. If there's any way in working this question and everything else, we want to give those dogs credit, we want to score that coon for him if we can, if he deserves it,
That's right.
And that's something I learned. And you told me something one time that stuck with me too, back in the early days of PKC, when you said, "Steve, the success of this organization depends on good dogs." What did you mean by that, Larry?
Well, the Super Stakes program at some point began driving the bus. It really changed the way people bred dogs, registered dogs. But if you had a dog in the Super Stakes program that was not a producer, it hurt. And dogs had to be a producer as well as be a good coonhound themselves. you couldn't rely on the slick handlers winning hunts for you every time. It just doesn't work that way. It comes back to the dog and you knowing your dog, knowing
Right.
what your dog's doing. It's still about dogs. Competition coon hunting, in my opinion, should be as close to pleasure hunting as you could get. And it's
Right.
not. And
Yeah.
it's changing dramatically. Like I told you a while ago, I couldn't hunt with all these new gadgets. I wouldn't know how to do it. You know me in computers, so I, I wouldn't have a clue what a dog's doing looking at a screen. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's what it's all about. I don't know if you agree
Yeah.
or not, but I think that's what it's all about. It should
Yeah.
be as close to pleasure hunting as it could be.
Yeah.
It's got to be fun or you're not going to do it. The odds of somebody making a whole lot of money in coon hunts is slim. Now with the big money hunts, it may be, but years ago it wasn't. When you and I started doing this, it wasn't that way. You win a few bucks if you could kind of help pay for your hobby. Great. That's what it was all about.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, kind of what I took away from what you said, and I've never forgot that, is number one, the guys, if they don't have a good hound, they're not going to come back. They're going to get their eyes beat out 2 or 3 times, and they'll say, hey, I better take up something else. This ain't fun,
Yeah, a good friend of mine told me he was in a slump, and I said, "Well, when did you win a cast last?" He said, "Been about a year and a half." I said, well, you might want to look at a dog.
That's right. You might want to check on what you're hunting there.
Yeah,
But I hadn't really thought about that. But the production end of it, too, applies to that. You got to have dogs that are good dogs that are producing more good dogs,
Sure.
And I think that your prophecy there, if that's what we can call it, has kind of come to fruition when you look at ProHound today and you see these top lists of male leader, female leader, pup leader, all those things. They're not all sired by the same dog. It's all over the board. I mean, there's just in fact, it's kind of rare to see more than 2 dogs or 3 maybe on a list, a long list that were sired by the same hound. So that tells me we're producing a lot better dogs nowadays. Now they may not be the kind of dogs that you and I would have wanted back in the day, but they are producing winners for sure.
Yeah, and the sport's changed. Like I said, I probably couldn't keep up today, but it's changed. I still miss turning a hound loose. I don't do it much anymore. We'll get into that in a minute, I'm sure, but I just don't. I miss it. I'll tell you that for sure.
Well, Ella and I have conversations quite regularly about things, and this is a little bit true confessions. I think about at 75 years of age, naturally, I cannot physically. I can walk the dog. I can pleasure hunt and have a good time. But I can't go. I was watching a cast on TV on my phone last night. And these guys had to walk almost a mile to a dog. And then they got it under the rules of this pro sport organization. They got to all stay together. So they got to walk a mile to this dog, and then they got another one treed back the other way, a mile. They got to walk to him, and then another one gets treed, and they got to walk to that dog. Well, hey, I can't do that. I can't do that physically. So this thing of podcasting and what writing that I do for Terry Walker is just my way of kind of keeping my hand into something that I've loved all my life.
Sure.
I
think it's important.
Yeah, and I'm living in Florida now, the worst place in the world to coon hunt. But, it's fishing's pretty darn good down here. I don't play golf like you do, but there's a lot of golf courses, there's a lot of things for guys my age to do down here, to enjoy life. But I can't shake this coon hunting thing. I guess I did. I've done it all my life, and I've always wanted to be a part of it, and I guess that's why. But we have the conversation, well, should I just give this stuff up? And she right back, she says, well, this is what this is who you are. Are you sure you can do that? And I haven't really come up with the answer to that one yet.
Well, and you probably won't. I think you're doing what you're good at. So, and you always have been. I mean, you're a good speaker and a good writer. So you're doing what you're good at.
Well, I thank you, and I've enjoyed it. This podcasting thing has provided an avenue, that I never expected or thought about. Years ago, I used to think about a coon hunting radio show would be cool. On Sunday night, everybody could tune in and get all the results from around the country and have guests call in and all this stuff. But how would you do that? It'd take a ton of money and syndication and sponsors and all that stuff. Well, then along comes this internet. I jokingly credit it to Al Gore. He said he invented the internet.
I'm glad that was a joke.
Yeah. I think you and I are on the same page on that. But
no doubt.
Well, let's talk about what we got a couple of questions we didn't answer yet. But, I think you've kind of already talked about what it's like to be at the helm of a growing registry like that. Sure, there were a lot of day-to-day activities, but anything particular that you remember about your days at PKC that stick out to you as high points or low points or whatever?
Well, I get, like you said about Aurora, and Aurora to me, the tennis center and the hunting grounds around there was the perfect place to have the world hunt at one time. Now the storms took care of that, but I used to dread it. I thought I'm gonna be on the phone with trucks while I'm down here. I can't get any sleep. But pulling into that community every year was just a memory I'll never forget. You see all the pickups, all the dog boxes, all the hunters. You start greeting folks. I do miss those days. I will have to say, pretty good dinners at Patty's at Grand.
Oh boy. Man, I'll never forget. You'll probably laugh about this. And our relationship, Larry, and I do want to publicly thank you for making that part of my life so enjoyable. And you and Rita did, for sure. And it was at Patty's one night you scribbled out on a little piece of paper because we were talking back and forth about, I was living in Michigan and that was kind of, that's a good little ways from Evansville, Indiana. And back and forth and all the traveling that I was doing and all that. You gave me a little scrap of paper. I'll never forget it. It said, free pass to work from anywhere. Do you remember giving me that?
No.
You did. You wrote it on a little old scrap. You tore off a piece of the placemat or something. And you wrote it on there. And I said, I'm going to keep that just in case he makes me move to Evansville.
I would have never backed up. But I remember you were talking about going back down in Tennessee where your folks were.
Yeah.
And that might have had some bearing. That probably was.
It might. Yeah, it could have been. There was a cabin down there that my grandmother Fielder's sister, Aunt Lena, and Uncle Milas lived in. It was well over 100 years old. They called that little creek that went up through there Possum Hollow. And that land was sold, but I found out that there was 50 acres available, and that old cabin was still standing on it. And I thought, man, that's where I want to die, right there. But it was just too many variables there. Land was landlocked. I'd have to get an easement in there. The old cabin, the bones were good, but man, I could probably built a new one if I'd have just bulldozed that one, for less money. But anyway, those are decisions we make in life. But
yeah, I do miss that. Like I said, and there's days that I do miss PKC and being involved.
Yeah.
I don't miss the 3:00 in the morning phone calls.
Right. Yeah.
You just get up and try to do the best with it. But I'm one of them folks. If you're up, you're up. So I'm not going back to bed. I'm up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's that's something that I think if someone who's never worked in a registry doesn't understand. You're in a sound sleep and that phone rings. And now all of a sudden you're supposed to be hearing all these sides to this question and trying to, pull from your knowledge of the rules what's the right answer, or maybe deciding whether or not there should be an appeal. That's when I got to call you or Roy or somebody and say, "Hey, we got this guy. He doesn't like the first three. He wants three more. He's willing to pay $100 for it." And then, but I know you used to always say, "We're not going to grant these appeals on that basis. He's going to have solid grounds."
Yeah, it was never about the money.
No. Well, let's talk a little bit about why did you ultimately decide to sell it?
We were in a period with the trucking company and a political administration that was about to break us. And like I said, we at that time we hold a lot of coal, and the feelings of coal today in the world.
Oh yeah.
But I knew that the time that I was dedicating to PKC, I was going to have to focus on trucking, sell trucking, do something else. And I had never bought PKC to make a living, so I had to go with that. And Roger was the prime candidate to sell it to. There were other people that had talked to me about selling it or buying it, and offered me more money than I took for it. But I sold it for just what I paid for it. The money's not important. And I think it was a good decision. I've not regretted the decision. And that's not totally true. There's days I still wish I had it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But it was time. I didn't really, and it worked out from the trucking standpoint. At that time, Rita was my partner in trucking and was heavily involved. And she now does her own thing. She has her own businesses. Jeremy's now my partner. He ended up with her ownership, and he and I work together well together. And
yeah,
it was just time to do it.
Sure.
But if I had to do over, maybe not. Who knows? But it was politics and trucking.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, and I don't know if it does or not, but I hear it all the time. People miss you. Not that they don't like Roger, but they miss you. They miss the good old days. I think they miss the days in the tennis center, and we could talk about that. Salem, the coon hunting, I guess, was the main reason to move to Salem, Illinois, and it is good around there and all. But that atmosphere of the tennis center and everything around Aurora, those days were stamped indelibly in the minds of an awful lot of coon hunters. And they look back on those days with fondness, and they look back at the days of visiting with you and with Rita and Grant Black and Danny Hamby and all those guys sitting around behind the desk there. And if I can paint a little picture of Basil over there with light stuff scattered all over a table, and then how in the world he ever figured out how to do anything with all that. But man, what a great guy he was. And with JC sitting over there shuffling through scorecards, see which dog he wanted to buy next. And
I miss JC a bunch.
Oh, we all do for sure.
I went to see him 2 days before he died, and he was down to where he could eat a banana a day.
Oh my!
You know me, I try to make light of most things, but I told JC, you need to get up. You've been in that bed long enough. It's time let's go turn a couple dogs loose. He said, Larry, I'll never get out of this bed again. And he never did. And I hated that. But I'm glad I got to see
Yeah.
him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He and I hunted together years and years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he used to talk to me, originally or way back, he had plot dogs. And he told me, he said, I never could get any recognition out of the plot people. So I switched to walkers.
Well, he was hunting plot dogs on the first time I hunted with him. He was hunting a plot.
Yeah.
Pretty good old plot hound, too.
I bet. A funny thing I remember about JC, he used to like to kid me about stuff. And one night there, it was, late at night, cats were all out. We were back there somewhere around the tables. And that guy named Steve, and I can't think of his name, he played harmonica. He had a whole case full of harmonicas. I don't know if you ever remember that guy or not, but somebody else.
Yeah, and you're right about Steve, but I can't come up with the last name.
Yeah. And somebody, I think, had a guitar or something. We all got back there jamming and singing, and stuff. And JC, he came up to me afterwards and he said, well, I knew the hillbilly had to come out of you sooner or later.
You picked pretty good, too. You picked one night at my house on my guitar. You picked pretty good.
Well, I used to a little bit. The old arthritis, man, it hurts to make an E chord anymore, man. It's hard. But, yeah, those were the days, Larry. Such great days. Well, now, I see on Facebook now, I see pictures of Larry Meeks. There's a bunch of kids around. What about how many kids you got and how many grandkids you got now?
Well, between Rita and I, we have 7 kids, 9 grandkids, and 2 great-grandkids.
Wow, that's quite a tribe.
And 2 of the grandkids stayed all night with us last night. They live close, Jesse's 2, our youngest daughter's 2. And they love the cows I got out back, and they like to get on the tractors. They're just my buddies.
I bet. Well, Jess was just a little thing. And when I was at PKC, and Valerie, she was big sister.
Yeah.
But she wasn't very old either.
No.
And great kids. And so now do they both have children of their own?
No, Valerie has never been married.
Okay.
She has dogs. Those are her kids.
I got you. Yeah.
Valerie, Rita, and I in June will be married 33 years. So Valerie's 34 or 32. I'm sorry, 32.
Yeah.
I went the wrong way.
Yeah.
But she was 32 in April.
I see.
Yeah, April. She was 32.
Does she live nearby?
She does. She's got a home at Evansville, and she stays at. We own property up in French Lick.
Okay.
But I've got a deer camp up there, and she likes to stay at deer camp. I got a trailer and a cabin up there, and she likes to stay up there.
That's up around Larry bird country, isn't
it? Yeah. He and I used to play a lot of golf together.
Yeah, I know you have quite an extensive contact list of people there. And, I liked working for PKC. You had good perks, man. We went to the Indianapolis race one time on you. You provided some tickets for that.
Still have access to them if you need them.
Well, that was the only time I'd been. I've been to some NASCAR races, but that one. Well, now you and Rita moved out to a farm, didn't you? Or somewhat, yeah.
We've got 55 acres in Warwick County, pretty close to Newburgh, Indiana.
Yeah.
And I've got 2 horses, 2 donkeys, and about 33 head of cattle.
I got you.
I was in the hayfield yesterday, and the rain drove us out.
Yeah. Well, how do you like that farmer role? Does that kind of suit you?
It's peaceful. It's quiet. It's good. I like it. The cows, kind of my buddies. And then, oddly enough, we got 55 acres also up in Orange County, up by French Lick, like I was telling you. So I don't know how we ended up with 55, but that's how it worked out.
What is it about cows? When I was a kid, I used to go to my uncle's farm. Well, actually, it's his father-in-law's farm, but they lived there. they were in the coal business in Hayside, Virginia, but Mr. Castle had this big farm, and I'd go down in the summer and stay with my aunt and uncle, my cousin. And I absolutely loved being out around every evening. Mr. Castle would say, come on with me, Steve, after supper, and said, let's go check on the cows. And we'd get in a pickup, and we'd drive around all over. Had a pretty big farm. Had beef cattle and stuff on one side of the road, and they had a dairy farm on the other side. Always loved cows. Always said, I wish I'd had property. What is it about that? I don't know.
There's something peaceful about watching cattle graze. I can't tell you what it is, but there's just something peaceful about doing it.
Yeah.
Getting a bottle of water and just going back and watching them graze, or just jumping on a gator and going back and watching them graze.
Yeah.
There's just something peaceful about it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree. I hunt on some ranches down here in Florida in the wintertime. And there's still quite a few active cattle ranches down here. And anytime I get around them, I get that old feeling again. But
yeah.
Well, that didn't have much to do with coon hunting right there, but that's just some of the things that make life good, isn't it? But
yeah, it is. We get older, we do different things.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. Well, Larry, we've been at this here just a few seconds, less than an hour and a half, and that's what I told you we'd probably do. Have we missed anything that you want to talk about or mention before we shut this thing down?
No, I would only hope that maybe some of the younger folks that hear this thing would pick up on some of our old ways that got us where we are, and not forget about them. But when we started, it was just carbide light.
Yeah,
shooting them out with a shotgun. So,
that's exactly right.
It's just a different world today. But the old way is still what got us here. If people don't forget where they come from, I think that's very important.
I think that old saying, dance with the one that brung you, kind of applies.
There you go.
If we look at this sport, it wouldn't be, the young people have a tendency nowadays to rely on their electronics. And I don't know where the disrespect for older people or maybe not overtly disrespecting older people, but it's an underlying thing, that old guy didn't know what he's talking about. We got all the answers. Well, we may not have all the answers, but we got a lot of answers. And I just wish they would listen a little more.
Yeah, they would know things to me that I wouldn't know today. They are a lot more intelligent than I was.
Yep, for sure.
They've got it, but it still comes back to treating people like you want to be treated, and winning isn't the most important thing. It's just not. Go out and compete as hard as you can, and do the best you can, and call your dog for what he does.
Well, we had a guy on just last week on this podcast, J.R. Gray, who won the UKC Tournament Champions. That's their $50,000 hunt. And we talked about that a little bit. And J.R. was quick to say, when he won the UKC World Hunt, there was no cash prize. The next year, they started offering $10,000 to the World Hunt winner. And someone said to him, man, doesn't that bug you that you didn't win any money? He said, no, it wasn't about the money for me. It was about the accomplishment. And if we could instill that in the younger hunters, I think it'd be to their credit. And but we're going to keep trying.
You said that a lot better than I could. That's exactly right. He said it better than I could. That's great.
Larry, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Not only, did we work together, as you say, we were team members. I know whose name was on that check, and I appreciated every couple weeks or month or whatever it was. And you, supported my family for for about 7 years altogether, and I'll eternally be grateful for that. But it was the friendship those nights out there on stakeouts and in the tennis center behind the desk and on the phone and all that I remember most. And I appreciate Facebook because I do get to keep up with you a little bit. So I do want to thank you really from down deep for coming on the podcast today and sharing some great memories with me and our listeners.
It's been a real pleasure for me, and I've enjoyed it, and I feel privileged to be able to do so. But anytime, you're welcome anytime. I'll take you out and show you some old cows, and maybe we'll even turn the dog loose or something. I'll borrow a dog. John used to let me borrow a dog.
Oh, does John still have dogs?
Yeah, no doubt.
No doubt he does. That's another story for another day. Well, listen,
yes,
promise me you'll come back on and we'll tell some more stories because I know the listeners are going to be wanting to hear them. So
I would feel honored. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, give my best to Rita and to the family and to Jeremy, my former pilot. He made me feel special.
I'll do it. I'll do it for sure.
Okay, Larry. Thank you so much. And as I always say at the close of every podcast, if you're looking for me, I'll tell you where I'll be. I'm gone to the dogs. Well, it's time on the podcast to check in with my friend Fred Moran over in the hills of Pennsylvania. Fred, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
You're always on the line, man.
Yeah, I got clothes on the line, that's why.
Well, how have you been since we talked?
Been hunting a lot. Been going a good bit. We've had a lot of rain over here. I missed 2 nights on kind of the rain. Just too miserable to go out and fight it. Me and Patty went out about, say 2 weeks ago. We run a track in the state game lands. This is 5,000 acres open to the public to hunt and so forth. Too many people hunt it, and they seem to think season never closes on coon, and they shoot too many. There ain't a coon in there should be. You'll still tree a coon, but not like you want to. But the main reason they're going, it's safe. There's everything in there as far as game. Fisher, what a lot of states don't have. We've got black bear there and so forth. Not a lot, but there are some there. Well, we was there on a Friday, and we run a track, and I thought it was a bobcat. I had both of my dogs. She had one dog, a young blue dog she got. And they run that thing pretty darn good. They crossed the only road in that place. I grabbed my one red dog. There ain't no traffic to speak of. I probably could have let him go, but I had a chance to grab him, and I grabbed the young dog, and I threw him in the dog box. Patty's blue dog and my red dog kept on going. And anyhow, they finally treed up on the hill. And there's only one house in that whole place, and they don't come out, they don't bother nobody. But we treated not far from their house. We go back in there. They're treeing like they're looking at it. I figure they got a bobcat for sure. We get up there, we search that tree. I wish I could tell you I seen 10 coon there. I couldn't find nothing, not even a possum. We didn't see a thing. I looked at all the trees around it. And if it's there, I'll 9 times out of 10 find it. I'll brag on myself on that. Not too many beat me find them. But anyhow, couldn't find nothing. So we just chalked it up as an experience and talked about it on the way home. And the next night she called me. She said, "You going again?" I said, "Yep. And I'm going right back where we were last night. I'm going to tree that track, and there's going to be game in it." So she says, "All right, what time you want me down?" I said, "Come about 8:30. She came down. We went back here, turned loose in the same place. And believe it or not, they struck not too much further than what they did the night before. And I'm hoping we have the same 3 dogs. I'm hoping they do something better than what they did the night before. Now, my dogs mess up just like everybody else's. They're not any better than Joe Smith down the road, but I figure they're going to treat this. Well, they run it, same thing again. The young dog, I grabbed him on the road again. I thought, man, it's going to be a similar to last night. Well, they went up there, and for some reason or other, Patty's dog quit. I don't know why. She never done before, but she quit and come back to us. So, anyhow, my Buster dog, which is the oldest dog in the crowd, he's 5. He went over the hill and he treed 350 yards away. Well, our hills ain't like these little knolls in Ohio and so forth. These are hills. You think you're in West Virginia. And that's the reason I don't hunt much in West Virginia.
Put your hand on your heart when you say
yeah,
that.
I did. And I have a good friend down there, Johnny Kuntz. He took me to one of his places where they have a bear camp and that. And they got feeders all over West Virginia. We did tree some coon there, but we was able to drive to the trees and everything. I liked his hunting. He had some good hunting, but he's the one who put all them coons in there or never bothered killing any. But anyhow, getting back to my story, the Buster dog's treeing down. He's no show off, just a steady tree dog. And the woods was beautiful. It was nice and open, big trees, and but it was real steep. What do we run across but a bear trap that the Game Commission set in there? It was knocked off, so nothing could go in it, but it's full of donuts, and that's our favorite food that they use. The game wardens they get them for nothing, and they put them in their bear traps. Well, I know the game warden real good for that area. In fact, he used to rent off of me. But I thought, why did he knock the door off on the trap? Why didn't he leave it set? I figure he may have caught a coon in there and just let it go and then shut the door so nothing gets in there. Well, his brother's a game warden also. And the one that set the trap, I later called, I called him but never got an answer, didn't expect to. I called his brother and I said, hey, how come Gumby has a trap set on a game land and it's knocked off and the door is locked and you can't reset the door? He says, well, it's Mother's Day. Probably he didn't want to have to go out there on Mother's Day and check the trap. I says, hey, you're like a trooper. You're on duty 24/7. He just laughed. He says, I'll see you. So I told him where we'd treat the bear. Well, anyhow, Patty says, I'm going down there. I said, I could call that dog back and save a trip. I just don't feel like climbing this hill. She said, well, I'm going down there and see what he got. I says, go ahead. I walked within 100 yards of the trap and I stayed up on the hill and she kept going. She shined in one spot all the time. Well, she shined everywhere at first, but then one spot, and usually that means the person saw the coon or something. Finally, she comes up. She says, all I could tell you, it's extra big and it's black and the eyes are far apart. So I'm figuring that's what he got, a bear. Now, I didn't see it to verify it, but like I say, that's what she said. We went from there, so I honestly didn't see it, but the way she's talking, she saw it. We went from that game lands to another place. It's more populated than that, but believe it or not, they by a big truck stop, and they killed a bear the year before with a rifle bear season. It was legal to kill there. Well, we turned loose, and I felt sure we hit a coon there. And there's a swamp in there, and all of a sudden It run all over there. There's a lot of wood share though, but it's populated. And they run it all through there, back down, back up. Well, they run it across a little road that don't go nowhere. And I'm looking on the ground on the cement, and there's bear tracks right with the dog tracks. We got on 2 bear. Most don't get 1 bear in a year. We got on 2 in one night. Well, there's a creek going up through a 500-acre field, and there's trees all along that creek. I figure as hot as they is running, they're surely going to tree that. I said, we better get in a truck and drive up the end of the field so they don't get on the main road. I was ready to do that, and they made a U-turn, come back straight toward us. I separated from her. I wanted to see that bear crossing the road. I figured I'll catch him with the light. But undoubtedly, he had a better lead on the dogs than I thought because he already got across the road. And the dogs came the same way, went straight down over. It's rough. It's all cliff and rocks and everything. But they ended up in a big, cave down there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Patty, she's all game. She crawled down there and got the dogs out of the cave. And like I said, we know what that was. I told a couple people about the bear hunt. I said, you sit there the first day of season. Whenever it comes in, you should get shooting if you got the patience to wait all day.
Yeah.
But I'm no bear hunter. I kill bear. I also, being you're a plot man, you might remember this guy, Joe Pauly from Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
I
know him well. Joe has gone through some real challenges with his health in the last few months, the latter part of the year, but he is kind of, he's very resilient. He bounces back. And I did get to see Joe down at the American Plot Association Breed Days in Greenville, Tennessee back in, I guess that was probably in March. So, yeah, I know Joe very well.
Joe Pauly, I met him by accident, and anyhow, he invited me to Upper Peninsula bear hunting. It was in September. I'm saying about I'm guessing in the 50s. I know that the latter part of the 50s, because we went from there to Kenton. And we got 5 bears.
Joe Pauly that I know, now you might have met his dad, Ernest Pauly.
Maybe it was Ernest.
Yeah,
it wasn't Joe.
Joe is a younger man than I am.
I'll tell you what, this guy was tough. Listen to this. We're hunting, and it got cold up there. He's hunting in them swamps in spade shoes. I'll be darned if I'd ever be doing that. I mean, spade shoes. And then he slept in the back of the truck with no covers or nothing, and there was frost on his body the next morning.
What kind of shoes?
I said, they make them plot guys tough. I said, that's red bone guys need a motel and a bed. So, but we had a good time. We got 5 bear up there. The bunch did. I didn't get one. My boy I took with me got one. In fact, he got the first one. And we had a good time. It was something different. And I treed 3 that year here in Pennsylvania, about 100 miles north, while coon hunting, with my own dogs. And I found out that you put them in there, they'll go if a couple start them. And they caught right on, did okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a lot of guys that hunt bear with red bones. What kind of shoes was he wearing?
Spade shoes. They don't even make them anymore. It looks like a spade shovel. And that's what kind of shoes he was wearing. They're dress shoes. They were dress.
Well, I gathered maybe that's what you were talking about, but I didn't have a clue because I've never heard of them.
And I'll tell you what, my uncle was with me. He wasn't much of a hunter, but he went along for the trip. He said, that guy's tough. He certainly was.
Well, you remember the woodpecker dog, the red dog?
Pardon me?
You remember the red bone named Woodpecker?
Yeah.
Well, did you know the guy down there in Indiana that hunted him before he was sold to Milton Spring?
Yeah, he's dead now. I'll think his name. He was in my cast in ACHA World Hunt.
Big guy. I know his name. I'm going to see if you can
can't
get it.
think of his name. And we got to talking, and he picked up a kid hitchhiking that used to work for me years ago. And he was telling me a story. When he told me about this guy being in Las Vegas, when he had a gambling problem, and when I'd pay him, if he blew all his money, instead of coming back to work and working to make money, he'd go to Las Vegas with nothing in his pocket and make a living somehow.
Wow.
And he'd come back when he felt like it. I'm trying to think that guy's name.
I can tell you his name.
He was running a dog for a guy from Florida. He was in my cast. I'd know the dog's name even if I heard it.
Well, are you having trouble hearing me, Fred?
No.
Okay. Well, the guy's name was Ted Ramey.
That's it.
And the thing about that reminded me of Ted was you talking about that guy hunting in dress shoes. Ted Ramey always hunted in tennis shoes.
Yeah, I remember that. Russell Beller used to do it all the time. I think they were good buddies. I think that's what one picked it up off of the other one.
Could be. Yeah, Big Ted. He was originally from Kentucky, I believe. He used to come in the UKC office and we'd visit every once in a while. But he's another one of those hunters that's passed on. But he was the guy responsible, I guess, for really putting that woodpecker dog on the map.
Right.
And
my buddy owned woodpecker, Claude Miller. He bought that dog originally. And anyhow, I sold Claude a real good female. I often thought I should never got rid of her. She was a good dog. And I asked him one time, I said, how'd you ever get hooked up with Ted Ramey? I said, I wouldn't even think you knew somebody. He said he got in touch with me. He hunted with the dog one night. I only hunted with woodpecker 2 nights, and Claude will tell you the same thing. The dog had a bad night both nights, far as I was concerned. Didn't show with the dog. I said to Ted, Ted, how'd you do so good with that dog? He didn't show me nothing when I went on. But this was dogs. He said, Fred, the night I brought him home, I took him hunting at 10 o'clock at night and treed 7 coon with him. He says he clicked for me right off the bat. But that's typical dog story. Hey, it might work for you, but don't work for me. And might be a heck of a dog for you, but nothing for me. But I'm sure he was good, but Claude had trouble. You know, the dog just never had him a real coon dog moment. And it's how you work them and who you are and everything else. But Ted got a lot out of him as far as clicking for him.
Well, you mentioned Claude Miller, and that was the Miller brothers.
Most honest guy you'll ever meet, a real gentleman.
Yeah, and didn't he have a school for training coonhounds or something? He and his brother or something?
What's that? Didn't he have what?
A training school for coonhounds or something.
No, you're thinking the Miller brothers from Arkansas.
Yeah, okay.
They used to do a lot of training for Berdoni.
Okay, yeah. So they weren't redbone men then.
No, they kept the English dog same as Bert. Bert and them were very good friends. Well, and they worked at that grape place that's still in business out there in Arkansas. It's Welch's Grapes. That's where they worked at.
Well, that brings back memories to me because I used to hunt in the vineyards there in Michigan. And the farmers there sold their grapes to Welch's grape juice factory there in the little town of Lawton, Michigan. So, Fred, it's been a great visit. I'm glad to hear that you're still hunting and kicking and feeling good. And you got to watch out for those big black bears, though. Those things.
Hey, I enjoy seeing them. We're starting to get them where we never had them before. Yeah. A good friend of mine, he's got the most beautiful house I've ever seen. For a hunter and that out in the woods, he's surrounded by 5,000 acres of water.
Wow.
It's Westmoreland County's water supply. Now, you're not allowed to hunt or fish here, and every time your line hits the water, you got to fish.
And you would know that,
Fred
Hal.
Bluebert, he's looking over his shoulder all the time. But my buddy owns about 350 acres adjoining that. And he said, Fred, you ought to see the bear up here anymore. They moved in. I don't know where they come from. But every night my dogs are treeing bear instead of coon.
Yeah, the black bear has really, the population has really exploded. And on that subject, you guys in Pennsylvania can't hunt them with dogs.
No. I tell you what, if they opened it up for dogs, I guarantee the first day of season, there'd be 10,000 guys with West Virginia plates here. That's a fact. Because they go for it, and it was legal down there where they do
absolutely.
it. And that's a big thing for them.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have another discussion about the bear hunting. Fred, thanks so much for coming on and talking to our audience again. We always enjoy visiting with you. Wish you the best. Have a good hunt tonight. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you.
Okay, that's the great Fred Moran, the Redbone Man. He's gone hunting, I'm sure. I really enjoy the feedback that we get from these podcasts, so feel free to get on Facebook and leave. I have the Gone to the Dogs podcast group page. You can join the group. We'll welcome you in. You can post on my personal page, Stephen, Stephen, F. Fielder. You can post there. You can post in the Coon Hunting Conversations group. That's a group that I started and work with my friend Alan Bridges on. And I will just take just a moment before we close to remind you that I do have copies, first edition copies, I'll sign it for you, of the book, Gone to the Dogs, A Coon Hunter's Journey. 200 pages, 23 chapters, all about coon hunting and related subjects. If you'd like to have a copy of that, you can go to stevefielderbooks.com. Until next time, if somebody asks you, where's Steve Fielder, just tell them he's gone to the dog.